Welcome back to our series where we're explaining all the important economic data releases that affect the markets and how they relate to each other. In this video, we'll be covering the IBD Economic Optimism Index. This is a measure of consumer confidence, and although it's not the most important consumer confidence release in the monthly cycle, it is the one that's released earliest each month. So it gives us an expectation about what may be coming from the major ones, such as the Michigan Consumer Confidence Release, and all of those we'll also be covering in future videos in this series as well, so make sure you're subscribed. Now, although it may seem obvious from the name, it's important that we start off by knowing what consumer confidence is actually showing us. At its core, consumer confidence shows us whether consumers are more optimistic or pessimistic about the economy and their financial situation. If consumers have more confidence in the economy and their financial situation, they're much more likely to spend money and to borrow to be able to do so. So the outcome of consumer confidence surveys are typically correlated with the strength of the economy at that point in time. If the economy is in a recession, consumer confidence is likely to fall, with the peak coming just before the economy starts drifting towards a recession. On the other hand, consumer confidence will be high when the economy is in expansion. Consumer spending is important in any economy, but for some it's even more important than others. For example, consumer spending contributes around 70% of the US economy's production. This means any data that can show changes in consumer spending, such as consumer confidence, is going to be an important gauge of the status of the economy. So if consumers are more confident about things like their financial situation, they're more likely to spend more, particularly on big ticket items like durable goods, which will feed into economic growth. This will also have a knock-on effect for business confidence, because if consumers are spending more, firms can justify their expansion plans, which may include hiring, creating more jobs in the economy, as well as investing in things like fixed assets. On the flip side though, if consumers are becoming more pessimistic, they may prefer to save money as a contingency. They never know what's coming up next. So this would mean that firms may also need to cut back on their expansion plans. As a result, economic growth may slow down. Since consumer sentiment plays a key role in US economic growth, it can also influence fiscal and monetary policy decisions. Higher consumer sentiment means more demand, which can lead to job creation and therefore a better labour market. However, it can also lead to inflation increasing as well. In that case, we may expect the Federal Reserve or whichever other central bank is in charge of that economy to look at tightening their monetary policy. On the other hand, lower consumer confidence can lead to lower inflation and a slower labour market if businesses aren't hiring anymore. So in this case, central banks may consider loosening their monetary policy. Another factor that makes these surveys important is that they're usually released before hard data is available. For example, PCE, personal consumption expenditure, measures what consumers actually did for the month, but that isn't released until the following month. So surveys like the IBD can act as an early indicator for the other releases that are coming up at a future point in time. So, as I said at the start of the video, the IBD Economic Optimism Release is the first consumer confidence survey released in the monthly cycle. It comes out in the first week of each month. This can then be used as a gauge for the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Release and the CB Consumer Confidence Index. The headline figure is fairly easy to understand. A reading above 50 shows consumers are more confident, whereas a reading below 50 shows they're more pessimistic. So, a reading above 50 indicates that consumers are likely to continue spending money, helping fuel economic growth, whereas a reading below 50 indicates that consumers are likely to cut back on spending. The index also includes 3 sub-indexes which measure the participants' 6-month outlook on the economy, personal financial situation over the next 6 months, and how they view federal policies, which can also help gauge the approval levels of the current government administration. Now remember, in this video series, we're going to be connecting the releases as we go along and showing how they relate to each other so that you'll know what to expect each month. So if you missed the last video on GDP, make sure you click on screen here to check that one out. Hit the like button if you're finding this series helpful, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next ones. Thank you for watching. Take care.